So I've been asked to try Umbral Soul for almost as long as I've been streaming. Many people highlight it as not only one of the best RPG Maker games, but also one of the best examples of RGP does not equal crap. Honestly, I'm inclined to agree now that I've played it. In the game you actually play as the bad guys. Not a wholly original concept, but here it's done rather well. The story is fresh, engaging, and deep. But before I get into the story, I want to touch on two of the systems in the game that I really enjoyed. First is a Pokemon-like summoning system, which even has evolutions of monsters. You can summon in a new ally at any time, even inside of combat, to deal with nearly every situation, once you've unlocked them. Most summons were story-related, and at the most there are about 17 or 18 total. A bit low, but that wasn't the main focus of the game. The other system I thoroughly enjoyed was the scenarios. Instead of throwing exposition and lore at you without you, the player, having a say in it, sometimes during the story you'd get a notification that you'd unlock a scenario. Heading back to your base, you could then watch it at your leisure. These were wonderful backstories, histories filled with lore or side events that took place while the story itself progressed. It gave the player the option of not only when they wanted to watch them, but if they even wanted to watch them, which was a nice touch. I, of course, watched them all, but I know a few players out there don't want to be bogged down by a lot of story thrown at you at once. I call them Philistines and heretics. But I digress. Back to being evil. The protagonist, Pandora, is a dark mage, and the world she lives in hates and fears them, blaming dark mages for the world almost being taken over by the evil god Ragnarok about 200 years prior. To the point that they hunt them down and kill them, even if they've used their powers for good, to save a life, for instance. This hatred leads to her parents being killed and her dark powers manifesting. Intentional or not, the racist undertones are noticeable and done pretty nicely. As you play the game, you begin to realize that the heroes of light are kind of no better than the evil god you serve. Instead of eradicating the light and bringing darkness, they seek to eradicate darkness and bathe in the light. While your party is evil, no doubt, there is a lot more gray areas to the characters on both sides of the fence that give the game a great depth that most RPGs lack. The game has many positives. The expansive lore is not only interesting, but optional. It is also presented in an interesting and entertaining manner through scenarios, so it doesn't feel like a huge text dump. Also, even if you ignore those scenarios, the main story itself does well to give the world life and depth, and is a fine example of world building done right. Along with the main story, several extra quests present themselves that either unlock summons or scenarios, but they all felt worthwhile and more like extensions to the main story instead of merely tacked on for padding. The summon system was awesome, and I liked that it could be used in combat as well, in case you brought the wrong monster to the fight. A major pet peeve for me was the looping music. Many of the tracks used in the game fit very nicely, but instead of looping, they usually faded to silence, then started back up again. Also, some of the changes in the musical tracks were jarring and abrupt, choppy even. Darkness points, DP, are a currency used to evolve your monsters. However, almost all of it comes from advancing the story. If you're lucky enough to do all the extra quests, you get some items you can use that will be converted to DP, but you're still just a little shy of evolving all your monsters. For something like this, I prefer a little more than a little less, you know? Also on summons, to upgrade or evolve them, you speak to a member of your party. The problem is, if he's in your party, you need to replace him first before you're able to do the upgrade. So you have to do a bit of back and forth if you forgot that he was with you. And while the writing and story were great, there are a lot of little typos and sometimes entirely wrong words used. Many spelling mistakes. Like all games, this one isn't perfect. Money only drops from human enemies. I see this happen in a lot of games, and I can understand from a story point of view why it happens, but from a player point of view, it's really annoying. Sometimes monsters will drop a sellable good, but even with that, money in the early to mid game is scarce, and makes buying items a luxury. Clever and smart playing can alleviate this, but it's still a bit of extra difficulty that feels unintentional. Another huge annoyance is that scenarios and summons can be missed, unless you do everything at the right time. I managed to get them all, but only because during my stream I had a backseat driver of sorts, telling me when to do certain things so I could unlock them all. And finally, while I really love the summoning system, in the end I relied on only one or two out of the total amount due to their overpowered abilities. The kicker? These ones could not be evolved. so it felt almost like I had wasted my time on building up the other monsters I could evolve by the end of the game. Did I find that being evil in Umbral Soul was deliciously rewarding, or did I want to smite this game in a righteous display of holy brilliance? The game did an excellent job of making you feel like the bad guy. And while some of the dialogue was a bit ham-fisted and even a little preachy, it was engaging and enough to make me want to keep playing to find out what happened next. By the end, I sympathized with the evil guys as much as I did the good ones. The line between good and evil was blurred, and even my protagonists of pure evil could show that they had a heart by the end. This one deserves being called one of the best, because in my opinion, it is. Who knew playing evil could be so good?
Yo, Mr. Black, another brandy!
Gentlemen, to evil.
I'm HawkZombie. Thanks for listening. There we have it, folks. Another review in the bag. Hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, subscribe, follow me on Twitch. If you really liked it, then throw me a sub on Twitch or join it to my Patreon account. Links are below.